Life would be a lot easier now, wouldn't it, if it were acceptable to plug an Active Directory joined server to a network that was directly attached to the internet? You see that happen a lot with desktops, but desktops have a different purpose. On the server side, plugging a server into some DMZ that is directly attached to the internet, well, is not usually a very good idea. It tends to put a shiver in the spine of your security professionals. Part of that is because an Active Directory joined server is one that has a very direct connection to the rest of your inside network. Another part has to do with just the firewall ports that are required in order to support that authentication, that AD authentication for that server, your DMZ. And so for that reason, there are a lot of tricks and other technologies that are brought to bear in order to prevent the need for an AD joined machine to actually sit out at your network edge. Now, back when we first configured the remote access role, we did so on a machine that had two different network cards. One of those network cards was plugged into the internet. The other one was plugged into our local intranet. And in that configuration, we were able to fairly easily connect up a client through a traditional VPN as well as through direct access. But it is, again, the security professionals and their need to, well, protect us sometimes from ourselves that sometimes stands in the way from us accomplishing exactly what we just did. And so here in this and also the next module, we're going to talk about the use of a service called Radius. That is a mechanism for you to handle the authentication part of remote access from the inside, the fairly well protected confines of our internal network. The servers that we stick out on the outside then become little more than machines in a workgroup. Out there, their compromise makes it just that much harder for a person to make that all-important second hop into our internal domain. And so here in this first module, we'll talk about the configuration of NPS, the Network Policy Server, and how NPS and Radius services provide a way to separate out the machine that's doing the remote access from the machine that's doing the authentication. Here in this module, we'll talk about configuring our Radius server, including a special configuration called Radius Proxy. A Radius proxy is essentially the use of a machine to proxy Radius authentication to Radius clients. And in fact, the difference here between Radius servers and Radius clients is arguably one of the hardest things to wrap your mind around when you first start jumping into this world of Radius and remote access. The Radius client in this configuration is not that machine in a coffee shop attempting to connect inside. Rather, it's the machine in the DMZ that needs to authenticate against our Active Directory. And so I'll show you here in a minute just a before and after snapshot of what it is we're attempting to accomplish with the machine that we already have out in that external DMZ, and how it will become a Radius client that connects up into our NPS server, the Radius server that sits inside. We will then talk about the configuration of NPS templates. In our little demonstration, with one machine on the outside and one on the inside, these NPS templates perhaps aren't all that useful. But as the number of machines start to get large, the number of both Radius servers and Radius clients, the use of NPS templates just simply protects you against accidentally entering in a keystroke incorrectly. As you'll see here, there's a lot of shared secrets that are required in order to connect one to the other. And so because of that, just simply using a template ensures that every machine is connected up appropriately. Radius also has the abilities to just log all the things that are going on, and Radius accounting, whether it be to a SQL server or to a flat text file, is a way for you to have a little security log of which users are connecting and what machines connect to what. And then lastly, we'll talk very quickly about certificates. I have, for the entirety of this learning path, tried to introduce certificates in as lightly a way as possible, mainly because it's the 412, the next exam, where we really get into the details of building a certificate authority. But here, I got to show you a couple of places where certificates, machine certificates, both at the client and server side, can become necessary so that we can then support other technologies like network access protection that we'll talk about at the end of this course.